Welcome to Mass Bioed's Career Ambassador Spotlight. Today we have Andreas Matern with us. He is the head of digital translational research at Sanofi Genzyme. Thank you so much, Andreas, for being with us.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
We also have a guest interviewer today. This is Edward Talanian. He is a recent community college graduate in computer science, and he works in IT and is interested in moving into data science. So he can provide a slightly different perspective than I can on your career. So let's just start off setting the stage. Can you explain for the audience a little bit about what Sanofi Genzyme does?
Sure. So Sanofi Genzyme is one of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies in the world. We're headquartered in Paris, France. So I get to take what everyone assumes to be very exciting business trips to Paris. But generally, they're not that exciting. You sit in a hotel room and you sit in a conference room, and the coffee's better, and the croissants are nice. We historically were really focused on a couple of therapeutic areas or a couple of diseases, including diabetes. When Sanofi is a very old company, it's gone through a lot of different iterations, and they've acquired other companies along the way. So Genzyme here in Massachusetts was acquired well before my time at Sanofi. So there was a focus there on rare diseases. But now, like many folks, we're obviously focused on, we have a vaccines division. So we're focused on looking at trying to help out people with vaccinations and cures for viral diseases, as well as oncology, immunology are another two big areas where we have some focus. But historically, we also make things that my 10-year-old daughter thinks is really cool. We make ACT, the fluoride rinse, and other consumer goods. So it's a very broad portfolio of things that we bring.
Excellent. And why don't you explain exactly what the head of digital translational research does?
So the idea of translational research has been around for quite some time. And it's the idea that for a long time, people in research, people who were trying to find new molecules to help treat a particular disease, would be in their laboratories working on mice and other animals and cells. And then eventually that compound, that molecule goes to a point where it goes into people, and the researchers never hear from that again. And they just start on a new track. The idea of translational science is this idea of the trite term is from bench to bedside. So from someone working in the laboratory, their data travels eventually to someone in a hospital setting, and then they want that data to flow back into research. So translational science is really all about data. How do I take the data that we generate in a research environment, make it available across the entire spectrum of how drugs are developed, and then so we can have a better impact on patient lives, and B, use information to design the next the next generation of compounds.
Excellent.
And for within that, I'm part of IT and part of research and development IT. And what we try to do is give access to folks in the lab and in clinical trials to the best possible IT infrastructure. So we want to make sure that we are giving them the best ways of using really complicated algorithms using the cloud. We want to make sure that the data that we have there's a term called FAIR. It means that the data is findable, F, so I can find what I'm looking for. Once in a while, that's the biggest challenge, because if you've ever looked on your laptop for that presentation that you forgot what you titled it, you know what it feels like. Imagine being in a really big company looking for someone's data. Then there's A, which stands for accessible. So if I can find the file but I can't open it, what good is the file? Or if I can find the file but I can see it but I can't get to it or interoperate with it, what good is it? Then the I is interoperable, so that I don't have data that's just specific to one thing, but I can use it in other applications as well. So and the last one is reusable. So if I do an experiment once, can other people look at that same experiment and use that data for other things? So we're trying to help our company think about, when you do an experiment, how do you put enough metadata, how do you put enough information around that experiment so that I can find it and reuse it for other purposes? Because as in science, we're still trying to figure out biology. If we knew all the answers, this would be so much easier. So as we try to find new things, how do we make sure that they're repurposed for others, right? So something that's really important to oncology, to cancer researchers, might be very important to someone who looks at how the immune system reacts to cancer, as an example.
Of course. Can I ask you just in general, do you prefer to hire people who have a background in biology or chemistry and then sort of teach them how to do the IT part of it? Or do you prefer to hire people who are computer scientists and then teach them the biology?
So that is a very great question for a couple of reasons. One, as a little aside, yesterday we watched, because everyone's watching a lot of movies, we watched Armageddon, the old movie about the Bruce Willis and a whole bunch of roughnecks. They went into space, and the first question everyone asks is, why would you try to have somebody who knows how to use a drill learn how to be an astronaut? Why not teach an astronaut how to use a drill? And for whatever reason that J.J. Abrams thought of, there was a reason. And my wife actually said, hey, that reminds me, what do you think about hiring somebody with one skill versus another? And it's really a catch-22, right? It doesn't really matter. If you have somebody with a really strong life sciences background, so understands biology and chemistry, that's great. Computer science is a different part of your brain, and you have to execute that differently. I generally like people, I like to work with people who are A, smarter than me, but B, also have a really firm grasp on some of the mathematical concepts that are really important, because whether it's computer science or biology or chemistry, it all comes down to math. There's going to be a lot of emphasis on, so especially for data science, you have to really understand statistics and mathematics really, really well. So having a firm education in that is really important. But that being said, biologists, I'm a biologist I'm a computer scientist that became a biologist that went back in the big circle. Some of the brightest people I know have their PhDs in biology, and yet now work for companies like Amazon doing whatever they want them to do. So,
wow, great. So what's a typical day in your life like?
Today or
a work day? Not today. Before
in the real world. So I have a team of about 20 people who work with me, and a lot of my day is organizing what's going on. We spend a lot of time, and we try to spend more and more of this time with our end users, the people who are actually doing the science. So sitting in their lab meetings, trying to understand what problems they're solving. And a lot of what we really want to focus on is trying to show people there is a better way. If you think about the evolution, I forgot how the phrase goes, but you don't want to build people things because they asked for it all the time, because otherwise we never would have had an iPhone. We would have had a much bigger BlackBerry, and that probably wasn't the best thing. So the idea is you sit down with people, you understand where their problems are and their bottlenecks. And once in a while, those are things that you can solve by just asking someone to change a procedure. But for people who are doing analytics and data science, or looking or analyzing very large volumes of information, letting them understand that there are ways of looking at cloud computing, for example, where companies like Amazon and Google and Microsoft are exposing so much power and storage and capacity that it's actually mind-boggling the things you can do. And it's always fun to remind people of things like, Netflix, how you can watch any movie anytime, and it remembers where you paused these movies even months later. Think about what they have to do and what we could possibly do for your experiment. So.
That's a great answer. Talk a little bit about your coworkers and your colleagues. The people that are on your team, what are their backgrounds like academically, and then what disciplines are they specializing in?
Sure, it's pretty varied. I'm a biologist, and biologists and chemists don't generally get along. But seriously, I have a number of chemists, some with master's degrees, a couple with PhDs. A computer scientist is on my team. He's based in the UK, and he has his PhD in computer science. And then probably the most unique background is a person, she lives in Pennsylvania. She has a library science degree and is quite possibly the best go-to programmer I've ever met. I would like to replicate her and have an army of hers because she's so good at what she does. I've worked in a number of different industries where she and I have worked together, and it's just like she's not an oncologist, but she helped build an application for people to do breast cancer screening.
Wow.
So again, it's understanding, trying to break down someone's problem and trying to figure out how would I represent that on the screen or in a computer. So people from a really wide background, people in a couple of different countries. One of the fun challenges about the brave new world of global companies is that you get to work with people all over the place. So for a long time, when I was working for another job, I traveled quite a bit. Now that my kids are a little older, I'm kind of happy I don't travel as much. But the travel experience was really interesting. It was, especially now that I live in Boston, obviously, and one of the great things about Boston is you can go from Takeda to Pfizer to Sanofi to in one day. You can visit 10 different companies and get 10 different perspectives, and all of the smaller the biotechs and the startups. Such an exciting space to be. Everything from people who are trying to use really cool data science and single cell sequencing, which we can talk about, but really cool ways of looking at how you can take a single cell and understand exactly what's happening, generate tons and tons of data from that one cell, and then apply data science to it to try to find new and effective cures for disease. It's really, really fascinating.